Hello, welcome to European Open Briefing for Tuesday, February the 20th. I'm Rafi Barajian, currency analyst at XM.com, and we're going to be taking a look at what's happening in the currency markets today. It is a relatively quiet day this morning. It was a holiday in the United States yesterday, plus several Asian markets are still closed for the Lunar New Year celebrations. The dollar continues to edge upwards, recovering from last Friday's lows. The Fed will be in focus this week. We've got the FOMC minutes coming up, as well as a number of Fed speakers taking the podium. Equity markets are a little bit calmer this morning. We saw impressive gains last week, though we are seeing a bit of a softer risk appetite this week. The euro and the pound both have pulled back from last week's highs as the dollar recovers, as well as the Australian and New Zealand dollars. The Aussie is at the moment fairly flat after the release of the RBA's meeting minutes. So let's start with the dollar. We can see a pretty impressive recovery for the dollar index, which is currently trading at 89.57, recovering from last Friday's 3-year lows. Dollar yen, we can see, has just edged up above the 107 level, having fallen to around 105.50 last week. The dollar is mainly being supported by higher treasury yields this morning. US government bond auction will be the focus this week for the bond markets, and this comes at a especially sensitive time for the US government to be auctioning its latest round of bond issuance, given the recent volatility we've seen in bond markets, as well as, of course, concerns about the rising US deficit. The Fed will also be in focus. We've got the FOMC minutes of the January meeting being released tomorrow, and quite a number of speeches on Thursday and Friday, including William Dudley, John Williams, and Loretta Mester. US stocks yesterday US markets were shut. They did close relatively flat on Friday, pairing earlier gains. Those losses came after the Mueller investigation charged 13 Russian individuals for interfering with the 2016 US presidential election. So the US stocks did lose some steam ahead of concerns about whether or not that the Mueller investigation will lead to then charges to members of Trump's campaign team. But for now, it seems to be focused mainly on Russian individuals not associated with any US citizens. So it's going to be important to see how US markets open this week, as that could set the tone for the rest of the day. Let's move on to European currencies. We can see both the euro and the pound retreating from last Friday's highs. We saw the euro hitting a fresh 3-year high, 1.2555 against the dollar. Sterling climbed back above the 1.41 level before heading lower again. We also have ECB minutes coming up later this week on Thursday, and we've got the flash Eurozone PMIs out tomorrow. But there is a bit of uncertainty weighing on the euros. We've got the March 4 is going to be a very important political event. We've got the Italian elections, as well as we're going to hear the outcome of the SDP party's coalition vote, whether or not the party members are in favor of that coalition deal between the SDP and Merkel's Conservative Party. Moving on to the pound, we did see weaker than expected retail sales out of the UK for January on Friday, so that did dent sterling a little bit, although it was mainly on the back of rebound in the US dollar. Those losses we saw for sterling on Friday and yesterday as well. We've got a number of Brexit speeches coming up. We already heard a couple, one from Boris Johnson last week, as well as from Theresa May on security on Saturday at a conference in Munich in Germany. May called for a new UK-EU security treaty. That she did win the backing from other leaders about this, but the timing of how soon this can be done is unclear. Also, Brexit Secretary David Davis will be speaking in Austria later today. He's going to be giving a speech speech to reassure the EU that the UK is not about to abandon regulation on areas such as workers' rights, environment, and the financial industry once it leaves the EU. But overall, currency markets haven't really reacted too much on the speeches we've heard so far. We've got more Brexit speeches coming up in the coming weeks. Let's have a look at the Australian and New Zealand dollars now. We can see both of them have also been heading lower since Friday. The Aussie did fall slightly after the release of the RBA meeting minutes. That's the minutes of the February meeting. The RBA overall did sound confident about the outlook, but they did warn about the impact of an appreciating exchange rate that could hurt growth and inflation. But the Aussie did recover pretty quickly later on. It's currently trading flat on the day, around 0.7915 against the US dollar. It had hit a 2-week high on Friday. The Kiwi, though, managed to hit a 6-month high last Friday of 0.7436 versus the US dollar. We've got a number of data coming up. We've got Aussie wage data on Wednesday and New Zealand retail sales on Thursday, as well as the bi-weekly global dairy auction that does usually impact the Kiwi. That's due later on in the day. And finally, let's having a quick look at oil prices because it's a bit of a mixed bag for oil prices, which is unusual to see. We're seeing Brent crude down by 0.4%, whereas WTI, the US crude, is up 0.8%. US crude is at the moment being boosted by the supply disruption problems from a pipeline coming from Canada. So that's what's boosting US prices. In contrast, that Brent crude is being weighed by rising US output. On Friday, we had the oil rig count, which showed the numbers approaching 800 to near 3-year high. And interesting to see the gap between Brent and WTI has been narrowing in recent weeks. We can see that big gap back in early January is now much narrower at the moment, especially after today's divergence in prices. Overall, though, prices remain well supported. It is being reported that OPEC compliance reached 133% in January to the output deal. Also, we are seeing growing support for an extension to the current output deal that's due to expire at the end of 2018 to beyond 2018. So that's looking increasingly likely. Looking at the rest of the day, it is going to be fairly quiet. Apart from the dairy auction, we're going to have Canadian wholesale trade numbers as well as the flash Eurozone consumer confidence index. That's it for me. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.